Are you ready to learn how to count in Korean? Because it's super easy and you'll learn just how easy in this video. So let's get right to it. Hey everyone, Caitlin here from Fluent in 3 Months, and today we're going to be learning all about Korean numbers. Now, the Korean number system actually has two counting systems. There's the Sino-Korean numbers and the native Korean numbers. The Sino-Korean numbers come from China and is also called the China system. We'll start with the Sino-Korean numbers 1 to 10. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. The Sino-Korean numbers are used for things like math, phone numbers, the names of the months, and more. Now let's take a look at the native Korean numbers and how to count from 1 to 10 in native Korean. 1, 하나, 2, 둘, 3, 셋, 4, 넷, 5, 다섯, 6, 여섯, 7, 일곱, 8, 여덟, 9, 아홉, 10, 열. The native Korean number system is used mostly for counting things, but it has many other purposes too. Now, what about bigger numbers in Korean? Well, it's actually very easy to start counting bigger numbers because you basically just stack the numbers on top of each other. For instance, if you wanted to say 11 in the Sino-Korean system, it would be 11, 10, 10 plus 1, 1. The same is true for the native Korean systems. 10, 10 plus 하나, 1 equals 열하나, 11. In the Sino-Korean system, you can do this all the way up to 100. So when you get to 20, you would just add the smaller number before it. So it's 2 10s. So it's 20, 20, 30, 30, and so on. Where this gets more confusing is in the native Korean system, because just like in English, the 10s change words. So just like we have 20, 30, 40, 50, they have different words too. So let's take a look at those. 20, 스물, 30, 서른, 40, 마흔, 50, 쉰, 60, 예순, 70, 일흔, 80, 열두, 90, 아흔. The native Korean system pretty much stops at 99, so you don't need to learn any more words in the native Korean system because they're not used in everyday life anymore. But you can still keep counting in the Sino-Korean system. So the next word you need to know to get to 100 is the word for 100 in Korean, which is 백. Now you know how to count all the way up to 100 in Korean. See, that wasn't hard at all. You learned it quick. Now it's time to start putting them to use so that way you can really remember them. One tip that I like to do is I like to use mnemonics to help me remember them. And sometimes I even pull them from other languages I know, such as Japanese, because the Sino-Korean system is actually very similar to Japanese. For instance, in Japanese, 2 is ni, and in Korean, it is i. Then you have san for 3, and in Sino-Korean, it's sam. So they're very similar that way, and that helps me remember them. But even the native Korean system, I've created little mnemonics that help me remember them. For instance, 1 is hana, which is also the same word for flower in Japanese. So I remember it by thinking 1 hana, 1 flower. I hope you find this video helpful. If it helped you out, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it, and leave a comment below and let us know what other videos you'd like to see. We love hearing from you guys. If you want to learn even bigger numbers in Korean, I listed a whole bunch more, all the way up to 1 trillion in Korean in the description box, in the description below. So make sure that you give that a read and learn how to count all the way up to 1 trillion in Korean, because actually, a little secret, you will need those bigger numbers, because where those numbers are more rare in English, the Korean won is actually a much smaller number than like our pennies and our dollars, so it adds up very quickly. So if you're buying things like houses or cars in Korea, that adds up very, very quickly. You do need to know those big numbers, so make sure to check that out. That's it for today, guys. Happy language learning. Want to know the best way to learn Korean? Well, then you need to check out 90 Day Korean.
90 Day Korean is my favorite resource for learning Korean and the way that I learned Korean when I was getting started. It is the best, most complete resource for learning Korean that you'll ever find. They have purposely broken it down into easy lessons for beginners so that you can really start learning and speaking the language from day one. There's a link in the description box below for 90 Day Korean, and I highly recommend you check it out so that way you can start speaking Korean today.